Thank you so much for taking the time, mate. So this is the second episode of the Strong for Life podcast live in Cyprus. I'm joined here by my friend Peter Lilliehöök, and myself and Peter crossed paths about 2 months ago. We ended up working together for personal training. The more I talked to Peter, the more I was like, I think we should do a podcast because we've got a lot of very interesting stories. So here we are. So Peter, do you want to maybe start with a bit about yourself, why maybe you ended up in Cyprus, and we can kind of go back from there?
Thank you. Glad being here. So it's I was surprised invited. That's very nice of you. Peter Lilliehöök is my name. I'm originally from Sweden and India. Mom is Swedish and dad is Indian, northern India. No one believes me when I say I'm half Indian, but I am. I can prove it. What brought me to Cyprus? Well, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are here, right? So I'm an entrepreneur, founder of an energy company in Sweden and Germany, or Sweden actually. And then I came here for that reason, just because it's sometimes hard as a founder to be in certain countries, and that basically I have 2 companies here, and it's a setup basically for companies. I think it's for everyone who's here.
Exactly.
Who is not a Cypriot or don't want to stay here forever or something. It's a nice country though. Yeah,
it's an interesting melting pot here. Maybe talk about the company. Maybe a bit more.
So I'm a founder of a company called Holy Volt. As I said, it's a Swedish company. And it's we're into renewable energies. So we have a kind of a tech that's based on nanoparticles, where we can produce different kinds of paste, which that kind of paste you can then print in a screen printing machine, which is highly modified. It's not a normal printing machine, but it's the basics is a screen printing. Those kind of different paste, we have different verticals, mainly storage paste, so we can basically print any kind of batteries, and we can print on any substrate. So if it's anything that's rigid or flexible, basically I can print your T-shirt into a battery or a solar cell. So all these kind of different pastes are then printable basically, and that's what is. I think it's about 20 plus years development behind it. I'm not the inventor of that, but me and my 2 partners founded Holy Volt a couple of years back.
Can you explain a bit more about the printing and the paste? Like what do you mean when it's going to be something that will change from like fossil fuels? Will it
So basically, as we know, we need something that's completely sustainable. And when it comes to storage, for instance, the world has a lot of solar panels, mainly Chinese, and they're silicon based. We don't have anything like that. We don't have anything that's in the paste, or it's a secret source basically, where we then can mix it together. And if you have, for instance, today, as I said, lithium batteries is the big thing, and we can basically change that scenario with our kind of batteries or our storage solutions. So today you have a problem with lithium batteries or LFP. You either have too low of energy density, meaning that if you put it in a car, you can't run very long, and you have problems with the discharging. Charging takes too long time.
For electric cars, you're talking
exactly
about.
If you want to look into EVs, electric vehicles. So the automotive industry is facing having big problems with that today. And also, yes, you probably know, you've seen that if you run it with a lithium battery, basically battery can explode because it's liquid. We are actually printing solid state battery. We don't have any liquidity in the battery. And the other things that so the density is much bigger than a normal battery today, and that's super interesting and also we have an inexpensive solution because it's based on printing.
Okay.
So it's very interesting, and we have different verticals. So we have solar, we have storage, and then we have.
When you say storage, what do you mean?
Storage is batteries.
Okay. Yeah.
So to store energy, basically. So you have the solar panels, which will take the solar or the sun. That's free energy, and then you need to store it, and that's a huge problem because you have wind power today. You have solar today all over the world, lots of big ones. But the problem is that you don't have storage enough, so you can't store the energy, and then you can release it when it's if it's nighttime, you need energy. You can store it and release it, and that's a big change.
Okay, so it's going to be much more efficient from renewables as well, just because you'll be able to use it when you want to rather than it.
And the pricing today that's a big issue for us because it's basically there's a 90% of the energy today is controlled by China basically today because they have it's done by its lithium and cobalt and manganese and different kind of rare earth materials.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, we don't have any rare earth materials, and that's also something we have to do with the pricing and stuff. So it's a very interesting. I would say it's a paradigm shift in the world. What's going to happen with it? There's a lot of good innovations coming out now from different parts, and I know also. And the sad thing is, of course, that we see the fossil fuel. We see what's happening in the US with Trump's. Drill baby drill and all that stuff going on. I think that's a sad part of because they had something in the US, renewable energies, where they gave you a lot of grants to they have this IRA that has gone down the drain right now. But the world's still going to need batteries and solar.
Yeah.
And we're still going to to be honest, we're still going to need oil. There's petroleum products because people don't think about there's plastic stuff, there's other stuff that you use those kind of chemicals in. So we're still going to need it. But for not polluting the world anymore, that would be great if we can do something about it and very quickly.
And just as you were saying that as well, like with like the energy independence side of things, are European governments very interested in the company and like not relying on China, or are governments?
Yeah, so we have a huge interest.
Yeah,
we have a huge interest in working with some major players that I can't get into which one we're working, of course, but everything is under secrecy. We're basically a development company right now. So you provide a tech, and then any producer could work with us who is producing batteries or producing solar cells, because we're not that. So it's basically a different kind of setup. But it's Europe. It's a huge market, of course. US still is very interesting for everyone, and also looking into India. So India is really my cup of tea and part. And if you look at India, you have around. I'm not sure yet, I'm not sure now if the same numbers that before, but somewhere between 600 to 800 million people in India are off-grid. That means that they're not connected to the normal grid.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a huge problem. So if you can, our passion with Whole of World is to, if you can change one person, one family's life, giving them battery or solar cell instead of them burning wood in the oven or coal, because it's basically coal-based, and it's bad coal. And what are you going to do? This is what you have, and this is so. If we can provide a solution, and a cheap, inexpensive, and highly efficient solution, then I'm the happiest guy on earth.
Yeah. Have you been? Has it been practiced in any third world countries yet, like the technology, or is it just kind of like the plan?
No, we haven't. We are in development right now, and we are doing a lot of tests and stuff. And when you do test, you do it with a third party, and then you put a stamp on it by the institutions that you seal it, and you have a data sheet, and it's proof in the pudding basically. Yeah, because you need to do a lot of tests, and so far it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
So far, looks
good. Is there any other places in so it's kind of Germany or Sweden? The idea came out of, was it Germany?
Well, it's a I would say a German technique. It's a very, very good combination if you look at Swedish entrepreneurship and German innovation. It could be the other way around, Swedish innovation, because we have a lot of innovative companies coming out of Sweden for being such a small country. And Germany, of course, being the biggest country in Europe.
Do you want to name the Swedish ones as well, just people mightn't actually know?
Oh, Holyvolt.
But the Swedish companies that are well known, a lot of
Oh,
people...
you mean, okay. Well, if you have... Ericsson is Swedish, Saab is Swedish, Volvo Group is still Swedish, Volvo the last wagons. We have
Spotify,
ABB, Swedish. I mean, there's so many big ones.
So a lot of people don't realize, I think, like Spotify as well is...
Which one?
Spotify, isn't it?
Yeah, Spotify is Swedish. You have Klarna, is the finance payment solution is Swedish. There's so many, and on the fintech side or on the tech side, it's amazingly, how many companies come out of that country.
Because we were talking about that last week, and I was like, because it's a small place.
It is a small place, but soon to be maybe 11 million people. I'm not sure where we're at right now. We used to be 10, but I think we're closer to 11 now. So the Nordic country, of course, is the biggest one in Nordic country among the Nordic countries, but it's still small. And
then, so this company, very innovative, kind of huge shift, especially with energy and everything. We kind of touched on this as well, like about what would this disrupt if it came in? Like if everything goes according to plan, and your company just becomes the new
it will be disrupting
default.
Everything there is to be seen in energy today. Because think about, you can print something ultra thin. Nano is thinner than your hair. It's nanoparticles, and you print it, you can hardly see the printing, and you can print it on anything, basically. And so you can do so many combinations. And you have a lightweight to that. It's about, I don't know exactly, but half the size of a battery, or half the weight at least. And so there's tremendous many combinations.
So the cobalt mining industry, all that would be disrupted, would it be?
Well, lithium definitely, yes. Some industry, but they are rare earth material, and that's of course it's a complicated industry. And you have the oil industry. Everything that's traditional today that we know about, there will be some disruption. But I mean, for sure you're going to need, I'm not an engineer and I'm not a chemistry guy, so I couldn't say, but you're going to need stuff like that anyway. But it will be a huge disruption. Especially if you can put down, and get on the price. Because if you look at the sun is for free, right? We should actually have free energy in the world. That's the thing, and but the state has made it for certain reasons and put the grid in there, and some companies are selling electricity. It's what it is. It's a money grab, and if we can do something that changes this for the humans of the world right now, that's a big step.
Do you have a timeline, would you say, where this could come in? It's a bit of a difficult one.
It is difficult, but I will say in the not so long future, I think we'll see. I think we see something within less than 5 years period. So that's around 5 years, I would say maybe. But it needs to be scalable, a big scale, and we're working on that. And it takes time. Everything takes time. It always takes longer time than you think, especially if you're going to be disrupting or doing some kind of disruptive aim.
Companies who don't want to be disruptive as well.
That also. But I think we can work together and all that. If you look at the world, even the biggest oil companies, are investing huge amount of monies into renewables, because everybody knows that you can't stop this train. It needs to be done. So I think you can work together. I don't think it's about enabling more than force people to be out of business or just take market share, whatever. But I think it's about enabling and work together, basically. If you can do that, and that goes for everything that is out in the planet, basically. If we work together, there will come up some amazing solutions instead of pushing each other out.
Big time. Even I think we were talking to this briefly as well about if because literally every war is an energy war, and it would be fascinating if there wasn't that over reliance on like fossil fuels, like what would happen?
Yes, I mean, you're right in that sense. Yeah, we discussed that, and of course everything is about energy because it's the biggest. We're all energy, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't have the sun, we would not be in here.
Yeah.
We'd be dead, all of us, right? We wouldn't exist. So it's the biggest ticket basically to be in that, and it's a lot of things to be done.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. And one thing I really liked when we were talking, I asked you like the similarities between entrepreneurship and acting, and you said storytelling.
Yeah.
So do you want to maybe explain that, and we can kind of go into what you were doing before entrepreneurship as well?
Yeah. I have somebody said when I first made my resume, I think my first resume was done 2011-12. Before that, I didn't have a resume because and when they saw the resume, I've never done it. They said this is the most complicated or most amazing resume, but also the most strange one. They had said. And I said, we don't know what to do with you. I got my first kid and my first daughter and firstborn, and then basically had to get out of the acting or the storytelling industry a bit, maybe to cut my hair and put on a tie. Not really. That's I never did that. But sorry, I lost track.
Well, I was saying, this is a good kind of segue because I don't know this reason, but I said to you when I asked you about the similarities or what skills were the same in acting and in entrepreneurship, you said storytelling was the overarching principle. Yeah. But maybe before we go into that, what was it? The kids that made you move from acting into a different industry, or what was the trigger?
No. So I'd rather pick up on that storytelling line because it's everything is about storytelling. Everything is about telling a story, basically. You build a company by telling a story. If you look at big companies, Apple or whatever, or any of these Richard Branson's company or companies, it's about storytelling. You want to make a mark, you want to tell the story, and there's so much to tell. I mean, everything is about that. So that's been my feel for since I was a small kid. So you mentioned acting. Yes, my background is not engineering. If somebody told me that I would be in an energy company when I'm my mid 50s or whatever I was at that time, I would just start to laugh. If somebody told me like 20 years ago, it's like, no, I don't think so. So basically my background is not engineer or I haven't gone to any of these schools where you teach economy, and I wish I did in a way, but you don't only have this time frame in your life. So, but I was trained as an actor and trained as a singer. So I've been a showman basically all my life. And that has led me into entrepreneurship as well, because I always been extremely curious, and I think we share that somehow.
Yes.
I have a feeling. Yeah. And curiosity is the biggest driver I probably have and had, or still have. And that's something I encourage everyone to have, a curiosity, because that's the biggest thing. And then telling a story, acting, everything is about, as I said, telling a story. So, that goes hand in hand with entrepreneurship, I think. And then I've been an actor, I've been a singer. I lost a bit of my Hollywood. I was in LA for many years in Hollywood, tried to break it and did some kind of career, and then it was chopped off. 94.
How long were you in LA?
I was in US 90 to 94.
Right.
And I was in New York also in a way, and I was in London for a while, and I was in Paris for a while, and I worked in different countries and studied acting. I worked as an actor and a singer. So I did musicals, I toured with a gospel band, well known in the US,
Right.
and and I was all the way around. And then I came into the entrepreneurship idea. I was in my young 20s, but we're talking early 90s. I was a young man, younger, and then it led me into restaurant business, which I've been to before, because it's also kind of storytelling. I like food and entrepreneurship. And at one time a celebrity car wash.
Okay, what's that about?
Yeah, that was very strange. Yeah, but it was a good deal. No, I'm not going to mention it because they're name dropping, but I'm not going to mention any names. But some extremely well-known famous actors, two of them, once told me, when I I was up for a movie called Mrs. Doubtfire. That I can say, if you know, with Robin Williams. Yeah.
Massive movie.
Yeah. And I went very far in getting one of the parts there. So, but I had a fallout with a huge producer. As I said, I'm not going to mention any names, but that guy is in prison today, I think, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And at that time, they said to me, Peter, you should try to do something other than acting for a while now, because you're burnt in Hollywood, basically.
Who said it? After you fell out with the screen?
Yeah, exactly. These two actors. And
gotcha.
we used to play, that I can say, we used to play poker one Thursday every month. I think it was, one Thursday. It was the last Thursday of the month.
Yeah.
That is in the story. I can tell that name. I can do some name dropping, but the other guys I'm not going to mention here. It took place in at a very famous agent named Rudy Altobelli, and he used to have a beautiful house on Cielo Drive in Los Angeles, and as I said, once one Thursday a month we played poker. I don't play poker at all, but he kind of liked me, an older guy, and liked my some friends, and then he had his famous two actors there and some other guys, same guys all the time, and we played that, and I said, you can do the drinks, because I know you know a restaurant, you're good with the drinks. And I said, I can do drinks and just listen into the conversation, because he was probably in his 60s maybe, and I was my early 20s. And Daniel, my Swedish friend, who's a well-known artist, a painter, he's maybe 15 years older than me. And the two other actors are extremely well known. I mean, we're talking world names. Rudy Altobello was he was the agent for them. So he was extremely famous, the top agent in Hollywood. So he represented a lot of famous actors, basically. Yeah. Don't ask me why. He's a very funny guy, very special. And if you ever watched, there is a movie with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio.
What's it called?
It's the Quentin Tarantino movie where they play the stuntman. Brad Pitt plays a stuntman.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a good fun.
Great
Tarantino
movie.
is Tarantino. They're zooming in on a sign that says Cielo Drive. This is where the Manson murder takes place. Know Charles Manson. This is the place. That's what Rudy Altobello's house. We played poker in his house.
The murder happened
there.
That murder
happened in 30 years earlier, or 20 years earlier, in the 70s, right? Because Sharon Tate, as you know, was it Sharon Tate? I forgot. Isn't that famous actress? I don't know, always mixed name. Sharon, but anyway, she was married to Roman Polanski, right? And Roman Polanski, she was pregnant, and Roman Polanski went to, I think, for shooting a movie in London. And they were home, and she was pregnant. He was renting Rudy's house at that time.
Charles Manson was?
Yeah, no. Sharon Polanski was renting that, and his wife, what's her name? Sharon Tate?
I don't know.
So. Yeah, famous actress. And some other guys, friends of her, were then there at that place. And one night, Manson and actually not Manson himself, I think the other, his group of crazy people went there. They went to the wrong house. They were supposed to go in, I think it was to the Beach Boys manager's house, because Charles Manson he wanted credit on a record that Beach Boys did. He was actually playing as a musician on a Beach Boys record.
Right.
And the producer lived I was neighbor to that house, to Cielo Drive house, and they went in the wrong house and did gruesome stuff, as you probably know. And this is the house we played. And now I'm leading me back to that thing. And that house, at that night, they said to me, when I gave them the news, Peter, you're not going to be able to act in this city, and either you have to do it somewhere else, or you open up something that could be interesting. And then one of the actors said, you know what? We have all these cars. We have those amazing cars. I got a Rolls Royce, I got a Ferrari, and they get sponsored by all these car companies because they were so famous. And why don't you start a car wash? Because, I always wanted someone to come home and we wash the car. We have so many friends. I said to them, listen, I'm not going to start a car wash. Are you crazy? No, not you. You have a lot of friends, Latinos, and who work for you in the garden. There was all these Mexicans, and I had a bunch of those that I really liked. I worked, had a house, and they worked in my garden and the friends. So I picked some of the best guys that I knew. I bought 2 trucks, and they went on washing famous people's cars, and it was very successful for a while.
Right. Was that the first?
Started my entrepreneurship.
That was the first. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a strange, long story.
That's a wild story.
It is a wild story because it has to do with somehow with the Manson murder, and then it's a very, very strange lead to something led to something, but has nothing to do with the Manson murder, of course. But the house was Cielo Drive.
Yeah, and
so
then
now
like
helter skelter.
Yeah, I guess like then has that something, because the actor in question said you already have a good network. So put your network to use and make a business out of it. So was that like the first time you utilized that concept, or were you already using that in Hollywood?
They hooked me up. No, I was very good at one thing. I got to learn a lot of those famous people, and I learned later, because that was they like to be around themselves because they have so much integrity, and it's so tough for them, especially if you live in LA. You can't live a normal life, basically. If you live in Sweden, nobody cares, or you can be super famous and you can walk the street, and that's why a lot of famous people actually go to Sweden or maybe to Ireland, I don't know, because nobody really cares. But in somehow in the US they tend to be all over the place and do Hollywood celebrity tours, whatever they did. So yes, I was good at relation and had some integrity. So they of course set me up with everyone. And basically they had a network. I had some network, but through my friends and through my years and doing movies and stuff, or TV, I met a lot of people and a lot of producers and stuff. So I had my own network, but they were, of course, so let's put it a bridge into first clients. Was these 2 actors, and they were friends living quite close to each other. And then I got another famous pop star, and then there was someone else, and then it led on to rest. And then that worked for a while. So
what happened then? So you got your name was blacklisted, you fell out with this guy, ended your career basically. Then you opened up the car wash. So what happened then?
Well, then what happened then? I was also a part of a restaurant, which is still 30 years old. I worked with them for a while, but the car wash. I left LA 94. I think I got tired of the whole not be able to do the business. And then there was a huge earthquake, and and I went through the riots. There was this Rodney King riots. There was some crazy stuff happening, basically. It is a crazy place to live.
It sounds, I've never been there, but it sounds very like a big divide as well, mass wealth, and then there's a big, there would have been a big gang issue in the 90s as well.
You could walk from one street, you could live in Santa Monica where I lived, and you could walk over to the other from, let's say, Lincoln Avenue, was past one big street. And if you walked over to the other side, it was a completely different setting, right? It could be Compton, basically. You didn't want to walk into those. It's like New York was for a while. As you walked into the wrong neighborhood, you would have problems. So you were leading into something. You just said something, and I was going to catch on.
It was like after I guess you pivoted into this first kind of entrepreneurial venture with the car wash, and then I guess you were saying the trigger to leave was basically not getting into the industry anymore, the riots. So was there anything specific, or was it just
No, I know exactly what I wanted to piggyback on. And I was interesting. You said something about the richness and the wealth and all that's interesting because you haven't lived there. This is something that has nothing to do with my career, which is so interesting maybe. This has to do with just the wealth, the craziness, I think, with this amazing wealth that you have in California overall. And it's so mismanaged. If you look at being an entrepreneur and starting a company or being successful having a company, then California is the worst run company maybe in the world if you would put yourself in to see California as a company. It's the seventh wealthiest state, I think, in the world. Number seven.
Countries, you mean?
Other countries, yeah. It has the highest taxes in the US. And yet you have so many homeless people. It costs a fortune. It's super expensive to live in LA. Just to go out and buy a coffee. I was there a year ago or something for a wedding. It's like $7, $7.20, $7.50, and it looks like in LA at least. It looks like it's one of my favorite countries, India, of course, but it looks like India a bit because you have the phone lines are still hanging, and the crappy sidewalks. For having this wealth, you should have so much more. There was a solidarity. It should be so much more lovely place to be in, and that surprises me. So there's such a mismanagement. What did you do with all the money? We have the highest tax, wealthiest country, wealthiest state. And you can't fix it. Something is completely wrong. And you don't have the healthcare and all that stuff. So the basic is just a complete disaster.
Yeah, I saw it a bit in Australia, but when I went to America in 2010, I was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so it wouldn't be probably as wealthy as California, but I just could not believe that the houses, they were just crazy, the absolute opulence there. Like Sweden is somewhere that in Ireland we kind of look at Sweden as like such a well-run country. Do you see like huge wealth in Sweden, or is it just more like seems to be socially like very, very well run, at least from our perspective in Ireland? But do you see that like absolute wealth there as well, or is it more kind of a bigger middle class?
You do that. You see there's so many billionaires in Sweden right now.
Really,
it's crazy. It has to do with all the newcomers like Spotify and Klarna and whatnot. There's so many startups that's coming out of the bushes, and the people are well off. Let me take you back to that. Well, Sweden, or the Scandinavian model, basically, it's quite well known, right? We've been a social democratic country run for about 70 years. It's been run by the Social Democrats for a long time. I am personally not a Social Democrat, but I don't, have a lot of friends that are. I'm more of a liberal. Which having a problem today in the world to be a liberal. It's like, what happened? What happened to us? But it's quite divided, Sweden today. But we created something in the after the Second World War, actually before that, that has to do with equality, and also we have quite high taxes. We always had. But we build a really interesting infrastructure where you offer health for free. I mean, it's on the tax bill, of course, you pay for it, but still it's free in a sense. You have a great education system. I'm not sure, today we're not on the top anymore.
Is it free education or free, third level as well?
Yeah, well, then we go up to, I think, the university later on, then you have to get a student loan and all that. Yeah. But it's pretty... It's very good. The interest rate and whatnot, if you pay back the loan, is forever. You can pay back your loan, I guess. I don't know the rules anymore, but it used to be very, very generous.
Yeah.
So it's a generous way of saying we give back to society, and we built that model. And also then with a lot of companies, Yeah, it's interesting because we also had like free education in music, so that's also super interesting because everybody plays something in Sweden. It might have to do also that we do actually the third biggest export in the world when it comes to music is Sweden.
Really?
Yes, so it's actually US is
when
number
you say
one.
Exporter, what do you mean?
Of music. So if you look at US is the number one selling country in the world when it comes to producing music or big groups or selling albums, whatever you sell today. You don't sell maybe albums, but then it's the UK.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about that.
No.
Yeah,
and then it's Sweden.
That is surprising.
Lots of those amazing. So that's also the entrepreneurship because I think we all went to school and you always learn to play like an instrument, two instruments, and there was all these choirs. It was in the program in schools when you grew up. So people don't know that they're Swedish. Like producers like Max Martin, you have Avicii, Swedish, Roxette, of course, now doing a retour. ABBA,
the Swedish House Mafia, guys.
Swedish House Mafia. There's so many. Amazing, right? Again, it's funny. I'm not going to sit here and put because Sweden has. I'm an exile Swede, right? So I moved out of Sweden.
Yeah, maybe that's an interesting thing to talk about. Like, there's a lot of good things, but maybe what are the downsides?
There's a lot of problems right now, and that has to do with the assimilation of taking care of people that are coming from the outside in and moving to Sweden. And I'm a globalist, whatever you call that. I'm pro EU. I think it's a great and a good idea whether you have free borders. Obviously, it comes with a lot of problems. We see that now with Germany and Sweden.
Yeah,
and this is a very sensitive topic. I know that, but I can be frank and say that because I'm now out of Sweden, but Sweden has huge problem with gang shootings. We never had that. We never used to lock our doors. Basically went out. I was never afraid of walking in Stockholm. Unfortunately, nowadays when I go to Sweden and visit my headquarters, the office, all my friends and relatives. I'm a bit afraid to walk out in Stockholm. I never had that feeling. I don't have that when I lived in Berlin, because I used to live in Berlin as well.
Really? So you feel less safe in Stockholm than Berlin?
Yes, I feel much more safe there, or here in Cyprus or whatever. I think also even I walk in London. So Stockholm Sweden have huge problem with gang-related shootings. There's been some couple of gangs that rule, and they are pretty mean.
Immigration-related?
Immigration-related, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
And Germany has basically the same problem. What we did is when the huge migration, first we had migration wave in the 60s and 70s, and that was working migration, because Volvo and Saab and all these automotive companies, they need a lot of good experts outside. We've always been quite good with that in somehow. Even if you look back in 1700, the architects came, we had a mix of people. But Sweden is a small country.
Yeah.
It's populated from Stockholm. That's in the south. People don't think that, it's a huge country for being 10 million people. You actually fit Germany within the landmass. The landmass is massive.
Okay.
It takes you...
But most of it is inhospitable, would it be? Like the north
you can live up there, but it's dark and, it's elks and mooses and cows and chicken, whatever. It's nature. It's beautiful nature.
Yeah.
But I would say 1/3 of Sweden is populated, basically.
Yeah.
And then you getting in people who might have a problem to assimilate, and we can't take care of them because our system is not made for that, or we haven't figured it out. And that's a huge problem. We need to solve it, or they need to solve it somehow, because that's not so. But on the other hand, there is a lot of good stuff going on as well. So I'm sure they will fix it one day.
It's the number one issue in Europe. Ireland is the same.
Yeah.
Ireland is like, the narrative has changed so much. Like I left Ireland in 2013, and really now in the last 2 years in particular, I'm like, whoa, when I go back, that's everything everyone's talking about. Because Ireland was always like, anyone can come in, we've always emigrated, and now people are like, no, it's too much. Like, there's too much. I think is like, there's 5 million people, and I think just too many people have been let in the last 5 years in particular. Yeah. So I think it seems to be the biggest issue in Europe at the moment?
It is a problem when they try to assimilate.
Non-skilled labor as well that's coming in.
The problem you can't. The problem many times the problem is that you have analphabets. You have people from villages who are used to. Maybe some of them can't. A lot of them can't read or write. Perhaps not. The education system is faulted, and they come from countries where, of course, been war. And I'm all for taking refugees. Don't get me wrong, and I'm all for helping people in need. The problem is that we have such an amazing welcome system where you get money almost for free.
Yeah.
You set you up, and the Swedes themselves have a problem to find flats or apartments and maybe jobs and whatnot, because it's a limited market, and that creates tension, of course. And then you get parties like the right wing, or not right wing, but it's kind of, we have Sweden Democrats on one side, which is like a very, very right, and then you have this Communist Party, basically on very left,
right,
and in the middle you have somebody fighting about but you have the tendency, in all the Swedes are now, but no, it's 20% of the Swedes voted for the Sweden Democrats, which is right wing. That says something about it, which I don't like them at all, but I understand why it's happening.
Yeah.
You have to lift that subject. You need to get up in the air and really work with it and on it, and make sure that you can actually take care of all those people, because they will not come here and they will, second generation, they will feel that they're outside the society, and they will become bad people or gangsters. They have no choice.
Yeah.
So we put them in a bad spot as well.
Yeah.
So it's two ways, right? You come here, you have to adapt to the culture.
The integration seems to be the big thing.
But on the other hand, we also have to help them, So it's a two-edged sword, or whatever we call it.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. I want to switch gears now because you have the Hollywood history, the entrepreneurship, but there's also something we haven't talked about, which is very fitting because we're having a podcast now, is the talk show. And you were saying that basically the way you explained it to me was it was kind of like a very podcast style layout, because you were interviewing people from all types of backgrounds and skill sets. Do you want to maybe talk about that? And I'm going to fill up your wine.
Yeah, there was some, thank you. There was, I got so in the late 90s, I had a company called Made by History for a while, about storytelling. And then I did comedy for a while, stand-up actually.
Let's go into the storytelling first.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so the thing is that I got kind of fed up in the 90s. They started to do these docu-soaps. Peek into the toilet or peek into the bedroom and see, put normal, the normal Joe from working in a normal job, the average guy, put them in a small house and see what happened, give them some stuff and bananas. It's like a monkey show. You you put a lot of animals, crazy things, and you throw some bananas in there or whatever, and you see what's happening. And that's docu-soap. So don't get me wrong.
Is this like the start of reality TV?
Yeah, reality TV, exactly, that's what you call it. Reality TV, right?
Yeah.
So the whole reality dogma, I was going to say, but the whole reality, whatever, everything became some craziness, people without anything to tell, basically. They're just going to, who sleeps with one, and the more vaudeville, the more circus you could sell, the better it was, basically. And I myself got so fed up because I thought there's so many stories out there, and there's so much fun stuff that you could learn, you could adapt and as a person and feel that you learn something in a nice way, and you can spread that in a nice way. This was just for me complete bollocks, this shit I saw. So I got so fed up with. So I looked into, because I have one hat as a historian as well, many hats, but many interests, right? So I thought, why don't I try to put something which is, I had a motto, which I don't remember exactly, but it was like humor, education and entertainment. And if you mix that together, you could end up also do it like they did in the 18th century, also in the 19th century, especially in France and in the UK as well, and Sweden. That was a bit of the upper class kind of thing. You made a French salon, which was like basically you invited a lot of people. Basically, it was rich housewives home because they had nothing to do basically when the men were out either fighting a war or I don't know what they did, but the wives were home and these big flats or houses, and they get kind of bored and have some extremely wealthy maybe, but also very curious women and educated that thought, maybe we invite a professor from or somebody who's been to Persia way back in the 18th century, which must have been amazing and beautiful. We know that it was. Yeah. And then that person will talk about, I don't know, I've been to Africa, about crocodiles, because very few people have seen a crocodile. It's very exotic. Yeah. So it's basically, or there was a doctor, some kind of innovation. They were not sawing off any limbs anymore. There was the antibiotics came, or Korea or whatever. Some famous things. Yeah. And they would tell a story. So they had like a tea party, basically, sitting or drinking wine, whatever they drank.
It's the original podcast.
Exactly. And they were watching or actually listening to this amazing storyteller telling the story about crocodiles in Africa, I don't know, or anything. And there was mind-blowing things because there was no television at that time, right? And there's no radio. There's hardly no newspapers, or there was some, I guess. But, basically they had to go there and tell the story themselves. And then I thought, wait, maybe I should do this in a modern way and do it as a kind of a talk show. I invite very interesting people, and try not to invite like a normal, like Johnny Carson, David Letterman. They're all good, don't get me wrong, they're brilliant, but maybe invite someone who's not a famous actor who want to sell the next movie, or is a famous artist who want to sell a few records or on a tour. It has nothing to do with promotion, basically.
Yeah.
The talk was the interesting part, or the interview, this story, this person. So I can mention one we had. His name was Professor Sture Linnér. And Sture Linnér in Sweden, for young people, I had a pretty big show at that time. So this was a TV show, right? It was on television, Swedish television.
Just before we go into that, I'm curious, like when you left LA, how long after was this?
This is 10 years later.
Okay.
It's 2005 to 2008.
And were you doing like TV or movies in Sweden in that time?
I did, now we're going back. So 96, I did a play, and then I did some stuff for some production company. I wrote comedy for some productions. I was in a history program.
So you had a good network built in that 10 years to kind of go out and get this show going.
Yeah, I had a good network built. But I produced and I became the host, producer, the scriptwriter, the salesperson in one. So basically I burned myself completely doing this Peter Salonge, which is the talk show's name. Yeah. But let me get back to that, because the idea was to get one musician always, maybe not such a famous band, but I knew some really good upcoming artists. Cool. So that could be nice to promote them somehow. Yeah. And then have two other guests that come from completely different worlds. And then I invited, I thought I was like 500, 600 people in live audience. Right. And this was to come from South Theatre in Stockholm, a beautiful old theatre. And Sture Linnér, for instance, he was, there was a movie about UN and Dag Hammarskjöld. Dag Hammarskjöld was the guy who basically, he was kind of, I would say he's the founder of UN. Yes. Right. He got shot down over former Rhodesia at that time in 1961. And Sture was his right hand. He was a diplomat. He was a professor in Greek language, Greek literature, which is amazing. Yeah. Honorary member of Greece.
And he's Swedish.
He was Swedish. Yeah. He was handpicked as Sture Linnér, as Dag Hammarskjöld's the head of UN's right hand. He was the head of Red Cross. he was also disputated, I think 1936. He was then in his 90s when I interviewed him, right?
Yeah.
So he was born like 1917. So he's 90 plus. And he met Hitler, Mussolini, JFK,
What?
Pol Pot, all these crazy people.
How did he meet? Through the UN? He met Hitler and Mussolini?
No. This was 1936. You know, when he disputated, or you call disputated? It's when you do your doctor's, you do your exam in front of a lot of people. I don't know exactly the word because I'm not native English.
Yeah.
Right? And he did that 1936, if I remember correctly, in Munich. And it's 36, right? So. You know, and he became a part of the movement with the siblings, Scholl siblings. There was Hans and I forgot the name, the sister and the brother Scholl. Those are the guys that started the White Rose. You know, there was a movement in the universities, anti-Nazi organization run by these two siblings in the 1930s. They captured them eventually. This was highly illegal, and they decapitated the siblings.
Wow.
So Hitler's guys, they killed them. The Nazis killed them. But he was one of those guys who helped them, giving out these pamphlets, these letters, anti-Nazi letters at university in Munich and everywhere. Yeah, he was that. Sturle was one of the part of that movement.
And he met Hitler?
Yeah, unknowing that he met Hitler, because he was out somewhere in Munich, in the city somewhere walking, and suddenly, it's an amazing story, he hears something in the back and he sees there's two cars coming, a big Mercedes, and first there's another car, and out runs two SS officer or whatever. They take poor Sture along, put him in the gutter, and basically put one foot on him, laying down. Lay here, they said to him. Stay here, don't move. And out of the other car comes Hitler and Mussolini walking, passing by, walking up. And then they left off and let him go. He met Einstein. He has an amazing story. He's living, his UN is in New York, right? He had headquarters in New York. And he walks into Central Park later in life, and he sees a lonely guy. It looks very kind of not sad, but he seems very lonely. He sits on a park bench in Central Park, and Sture sits beside him. He sits down, and they start talking to each other. And he sees that he's scribbling, this guy with a mustache, you know, with a white hair, and sits there and he tells him that I have a granddaughter. I'm writing a letter or something. I don't remember exact the story here. But something he writes to his granddaughter or something, and they said, yeah, it's nice. And they started talking a bit, and he tell him I was doing that, and I'm doing this, and you're with the UN, yeah. So it's a normal conversation, but that was Albert Einstein.
Wow, that's so crazy.
Yeah, and those stories are absolutely amazing, because the audience were, you know, there were quite a lot of people who were in the 40s,
91
50s.
Giving this.
The story.
When you interviewed him, he was 90.
He was 90 something, 91, yeah.
Amazing.
And I remember the audience was completely quiet. Usually you hear something, you know, somebody sitting there with chewing paper, or whispering something. Maybe you could drop a needle. It's completely quiet. And a lot of those guys out there in the audience, they had no clue who this man was. But he mesmerized, is the right word?
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was part
How
of
long
it.
was the interview?
I don't remember exactly. It was, I had him and another woman, Eva, and who was famous in the television world in Sweden, or publishing company. And then I had a music act. So it was probably running for an hour or something. I don't remember exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. How long was that running for then, the talk show?
2005 to 2008.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it, but it was a lot of work, and it's like when you're an entrepreneur, you put so much passion into things.
Yeah.
You put so much effort, and also you put so much money, if you have any money, and to just try to get it running. Because the thing is, when you do something like that, was just before my time, because people said, this is amazing, but it is not the normal. It was kind of a disruptor in the industry of doing that, because this was an old concept that I modernized, and to get people, get companies to sponsor that was a tough one. And then there was in 2008, there was a big financial dip. Remember that, and that made a problem for the show as well. So I had to cancel it. Basically, I got tired. I mean, basically, I've run out of energy and money.
Yeah,
I can tell. I think I'm basically paid for the show itself for some shows,
right?
Because I had to pay these artists, some of them, I also had you need to have someone who's known, so you have to mix it to attract to buy tickets, and if you don't do that, it's a tough one.
Definitely early, because like when you said that to me a few weeks ago, I was like, oh, that's what podcasts do now. Like, it's just it's interesting, maybe not well known or not. A lot of podcasts, it is the person is promoting a book or a new album or a new movie, but a lot of really good podcasts is just the host is interested in the person, and it just stimulates a very good conversation.
Problem is, I can imagine, how do you stick out? Because there's so many podcasts, I imagine, right? Anyone can do a podcast.
Yep.
And I can imagine that a lot of them might have with different qualities, let's put it that way. Yeah. And there's more quantity maybe than quality, I can imagine, like anything else. I have no clue, but there must be millions of podcasts out there.
There are, but when you look at the stats, it's actually fascinating on like, I think it's if you've uploaded over 20 podcasts, you're in like the top 80%, I think. Or like you're above, you're in the top 20%, sorry.
Okay.
So, 80% of the people who've podcasts are below you. And so it doesn't like, and then if you're over 50 or, this is like going to be, I don't know, podcast 140 that I've done. So it's probably in the top 5% of volume of podcasts.
You've done 140?
Yeah.
Amazing. How long have you been doing this?
Since October, November of 2021. But this is only the second in-person one.
Oh.
But it's just like a lot of people like the idea of doing something and it's novel, and then they just stop because they get bored or whatever. Yeah. So I think it's like, in particular, like that's what I was saying to you, like I think it would make so much sense for you to just start a podcast because of your history.
Yeah, but it's one thing, you have to have time. You have to take the time. I have two kids, two smaller kids. I mean, and the family life, and then we're running entrepreneurs. Running a company. Building that. With all the comes. But yes, definitely. My thing is I'm going to build a studio again, music studio. But that's another. Maybe I do a podcast from there then. Because it's fitting, right? Going back to music again, that would be fun. That's the thing.
That's the next step, is it?
Well, for fun. I mean, I'm closing in on 60, so it's not going to be. There's not going to be any pop star anymore. I have no desire to. Only desire is the good energy. We're talking like we like each other. We met, and stuff. You're helping with my poor body, and get in shape here, and we're talking about spirituality a lot and things. And for me, it's the music is one of the purest form of energy, because we're talking there's vibration, and the frequency is pretty high. It's very interesting. And for me, when I work with musicians, or if I sing, which I don't often do anymore, unfortunately, but because when I have time, that's just an amazing feeling. It's stronger. That is stronger in me than the acting part.
Wow. Yeah. And was it more acting than singing in the career?
I think it was. Good question. I think it was kind of equal. I don't know. I never looked into what I've done a lot of strange stuff, but basically 50-50, I guess.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to ask you about as well is like from talking to you, you seem to be very good at building networks, really good, like networks that can help move things in different positions. Like you're in Hollywood, you networked with like high profile actors. Now you've got the energy company, and it seems to have opened up lots of potential and opportunities. Is this something that you practiced, or how do you recommend someone who wants to better network and build a better network within their social life or their professional life?
Well, I mean, basically, I think not everyone is suited for, I guess, building up a network. It also depending on how you are as a person, right? I mean, I used to be very extrovert. I am not the same, thank God. In many ways, I'm of course not. I'm an older version of something. I'm not exactly not. I'm not. You know, you develop, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, and you're absolutely not the same person as you were. Well, not 5 minutes ago either, because you develop all the time. It's just physics. And I was very extrovert when I was a younger kid or guy. I had to, you know, because childhood, whatever, different. You know, I had an interesting childhood, let's put it that way. That made me, I guess, search for attention outside the home. And that I became a very good kind of a networker that way, because I got a followers. I was easy to deal with. I guess I was very funny when I was younger. And I was a clown basically in school, and I was very good at it. I was running all the theaters on Friday. You know, you had this thing, Funny Friday, whatever you call it in Sweden, where you had 1 hour, you had to do a play in front of the class.
Okay.
I was the one who did all those plays.
Right.
No one else. Even if I had to do it myself. So I think I was very easy to. I'm very good at socializing. I was.
Yeah.
If I look at where I am right now, I'm not the same guy, and I'm very, very much. How should I put this? I'm not so interested in socializing anymore. I'm just more reclusive, of, you know. And you also save energy. I don't like too much small talk and not to go any events. Before, I used to go to any premiere or any events and, you know, hang everywhere, whatever I could do. And you know, when you're younger, you always want to go to clubbing and do. So now I'm talking a lot here. Sorry. To answer your question, what kind of recommendation would you give anyone to start being better at networking?
Exactly.
Basically?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know what advice. It's like I said. It's a personality thing. That's one thing. If you have the personality, a lot of people, you know, for instance, my wife doesn't like to small talk and network at all. She hates that.
Yeah.
She likes to one-on-one or a nice dinner, and if she likes you, and we have a nice conversation. It's extremely smart and all that stuff, but it's hard.
Yeah.
If you are a socializing guy and you have the urge to doing that, I would just say. There's so many venues out there today. There's so much to choose from, and I guess that's a problem, because there's, like you say, a lot of podcasts, but there's a lot of venues. When I grew up, there was not many venues to choose from. You know, all the conferences or sales things or whatever, depending where you're in. If you like, you know, networking, just join anything, any groups you feel it's good. We met actually via.
Telegram.
We met through a networking thing, because somebody recommended me to some Germans, said get into this group on Telegram.
Yep.
And then we connected without actually meeting first time. Because we hooked up, because there was a chat there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he asked me for some business thing, and we started hooking up. And I asked, are you a trainer?
So random.
I had no clue. And that's meant to be, right?
It's very funny. Now we're doing a podcast. It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, so I would say you have to be very curious.
Yeah.
You have to be outgoing, of course, and not be too impressed by things.
Explain that last point.
Well, if you got a network in Hollywood, don't don't be, I've actually very few times I've been impressed by people. I can highly say that I admire or think they've done a great job, but I mean, being like a fan, I don't really have any some gods that I put up there.
Yeah.
Integrity is a good thing. If you have integrity, you're curious.
I think that's a great point that you just made there, because I guess in Hollywood people would probably find that very off-putting. If you can just treat someone in Hollywood like they're a regular person, that's probably a nice feeling for them, rather than being like, oh, you're my hero,
Yes, but Hollywood is really the worst case scenario, right? Hollywood is really, it's just don't aim for that. Just my advice, if you want to get into act, no, not you maybe, but for anyone listening, if you do that, and if you, it's just that, there's one thing, so I was going to say a couple of things here. I miss the acting. I miss doing Shakespeare. I miss doing Chekhov or Molière or any good written play. Anything that's has a decent, very good script. It's amazing to work with other actors, to work with directors that are amazing. I haven't done it for many years, so I wouldn't know what it is now. But I'm pretty much sure that I miss the how do you say it? The skill, the trade. And same with music. What I don't miss is the business, because the business is completely different. And I think Hollywood is going to hitting the. Now I'm probably going to take shit out of this. Is hitting a stop right now. You will see a different. Something will happen, I think, with that arena, but. Hollywood is really the worst example. I would say if you're going to build a company and be an entrepreneur, or if you look for let's say you need capital, because that's interesting, right? You need to start a company today, you need a lot of cash, basically. You don't need, but you should maybe.
Let's actually maybe go into that. So like back, was it 2018 that you became a founder with the company?
Well, it was 2019, but I have been founded company before that, so I give you advice. So this is just one of this is the biggest thing I've ever done in company-wise. But I've been raising capital. I actually worked for a law firm for 5 years as well, so I've done many different things. Right. But I worked as an advisor for a long time for different families, family offices you call it. Those rich, wealthy families. Basically, they act like banks. Yeah. So they're very well funded, and they invest in certain things. We're going to have to rewind here and see how you got into that. Yeah, I don't know either. But I'm talking now about the network of raising capital, how you do it. So this is something. So I learned the way of raising capital. Targeting businesses that will be interesting to invest into, and vice versa, getting the entrepreneurs or the founders, whatever, to find capital, to find the right investors for their capital, because it's not all the time that you meet and there's a good marriage, right? Yeah. Because that's about a good marriage. It's like you're a connector. Exactly. You're a kind of a broker, connector, whatever you want to call it, because in the connector, you're a relation guy, and it's all about relations. Relation and storytelling is two good things when it comes to me. Yeah. So you were basically like you basically were able to match builders or entrepreneurs, innovators. So they had a really good product with people who had the capital that they wanted to put into something that was going to compound. And there's a risk with that, and they of course need to do their due diligence, and it's a matchmaking basically. Yeah. How did you move into that from the talk show? That has to do. All right. My God, how are you going to edit this? This is why I wanted to do the podcast with you. Good luck with that. So 2008, I was going to say I dislocated myself on the industry. I basically got a burnout after that, to be honest. I got very, I isolated myself after that. And And I was thinking, did I live on an island at that time in Sweden? Yeah, I think we just moved. No, I didn't. We lived somewhere else. Yeah, 2008. I don't know exactly what did I do after that. I think this took some years. I did some. Yeah, I was an editor-in-chief for a luxury magazine, a very short time, called Connoisseur in Sweden, 2011. And I as a historian, I did a lot of. How you say it? I was a guy that did a lot of lectures. I did lectures basically. I did a lot of those lectures and moderating jobs. So I was moderating shows, moderating seminars for a while because I knew how to do that somehow. While I learned it, it's not so hard. You have to listen. Try to listen at least and let them be in focus, and which is something that people have a problem with, I think, today overall, because now you have this YouTube shorts and everything. It's just the span is very short today. People's span, attention span.
It is and it isn't, because I think now, like the long form, 3-hour podcasts are actually doing really well now as well.
Wonderful. I didn't know.
Yeah, like Joe Rogan is the biggest kind of podcaster in the world. So. Okay. It's like people want, 30 seconds is like too long, and then 3 hours people are just listening to longer form, which is nice.
Right, because next level I suppose it was 2 hours. Those because I put them in a night time and then I fall asleep, unfortunately, after a while. And you're right about that, I think. But yeah, basically I did those. Sorry, I went and I did those moderation and thing with a luxury magazine for a while, which was very interesting. And then after that, I quit from that. And we were waiting for our first daughter, first kid. And that was 2012. And I had no clue what to do. And I wanted to do something. Well, I didn't really know what am I going to do. I was... I don't remember my age at that time. I was in my 40s.
Wow.
I was 44, 45.
So just on that, I think that's an interesting point to maybe touch on, is like when you're going through that phase of not really knowing, because I think that as a entrepreneur, sometimes I'm like, I panic, like what am I going to do long term, or where are things going? So like when you were thinking about that and then having a daughter on the way as well, and there wasn't really any clear path, like how did you deal with that psychologically?
Yeah, there was, of course, thinking, because let's put it this way, I did a lot of passionate projects, basically. I was never thinking about money. Well, of course, when I did that car thing or restaurant, I was thinking about, and I need to make some money to, pay for stuff. And, but I really didn't. I had been ups and downs. My financial situation was really like a roller coaster. I had lots of money suddenly, and then I had no money. And that's when you're a freelancer, right? It's very normal. Yeah. And if you don't have a stability there, and then you're going to get that's your first child into the world. And you better do something, I think, because then you suddenly get responsibilities. One thing if you're by yourself or with your partner, and you can just hit it and work selling hot dogs. I don't know. You always find something to do. But when you have a kid on the way, yes, then you start thinking about it. Just changes the whole perspective and the whole world, right?
Was that a big thing that shifted?
Yes. And I have to think, I have to do something now, and I have to have a pension plan, good salary and whatnot. And also in the 40s, like, what's going to happen? I need, I didn't even think about pension and stuff. I never thought about that before, but it started, when that started. So what happened is that I went to usually our mentors have often been women for some reason. Okay. And I went to two women, older than me, not older, but older women that I really admired. And one was named Anna, and the other one's named Elizabeth. I'm not going to mention her last name, but well known in this kind of society of Stockholm or Sweden, their husbands or themselves. They made amazing careers, both of them, and well respected and honest and lovely. Two lovely women. I still admire them. I'm still in touch with them, both of them. And they said to me, well, so you're looking for some kind of work. You want to do something. What do you want to do, Peter? You've done so many things here now. But what's your... Yeah, I want to, I think I'm going to be into... I would love to be, NGO. I want to do something that means something, like the Red Cross or Doctors Without Borders or whatever it's called, and all that, And yes, that would be great. Or, okay, so do you have a CV? No, I never had a CV, and this comes again. then they helped me to form the CV because I never had that. And we started with, what's your education? And it's very broad. And it's not the typical education will put me into industry or be a CEO of a big company or anything like that. Forget that. Completely bananas. And then they said, you should meet this guy who is at that time was the head recruiter for, the big bosses of Ericsson, ABB, Scania, whatever, in Sweden. And I knew him a bit. He knew about me because I was in a certain... People knew about me because I was the editor-in-chief and I was been on TV. So I was not unknown in Stockholm, at least, or in Sweden. So kind of, I had some kind of name somehow. I don't know why, but, So he said, his name was Berglund, Michael. He said, I booked a meeting with him, said, come up here. Do you have a CV with you? Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, I sent a CV to him, and then he booked a meeting. And I met him at his fancy office in Stockholm. And I sat down with him. He was this older gentleman, white, on the beard, and very prominent, extremely prominent, because he's the guy who basically... made anyone to get the top CEO, C-level jobs on big companies and banks, right? This was the guy. And I'm going to him, being me, coming from somewhere completely different from his world. And he started smiling. I said, yeah, Peter, it's nice. I see you have the most, let's put it this way. You have a CV that I've never seen anything like this. And this is both positive and negative. I said, should we do the negative way? Well, it's so broad and strange. So I really don't know what to do with you. What do you want to do? And also, on the other hand, you could do anything with your CV, but it's not streamlined. So what do you want to do? I see you as the next head of the theater company here or something like that. But those jobs are not easily, they're not out in the market so often. I understand that. I want to get into the NGO side. Yeah, but you also want to get paid, right? Because this job as an NGO, of course, it's not high salary. It's a good, okay salary. But I thought maybe I want to make some more money maybe also. So nothing came out, but it was interesting.
Some women set you up with that?
Yeah. Well, I knew him before, but they set me up because one of them used to be the head of press for the Royal House in Sweden. So she was very well.
Royal House.
As the king's secretary, basically. Yeah, Yeah. So it's the whole, the whole crowd. Yeah, and they knew me very well. So I ended up not getting anything from that. But two days later, a well-known lawyer who had a big firm in Sweden, Per Magnusson, called me up and said, I want to have a lunch with you. And at this restaurant, could you make it? Oh, I said, yeah, well, yes, but I didn't know him that well. It was acquaintance. He's seen me on some kind of show, or I think he's seen me when I did some guided tours, some history tour, which I did in Stockholm sometimes for certain companies, whatever. And then we had lunch, and then he said, I want you to be I'm going to try to cut it short here. I want you to be our marketing director for this firm, a law firm. And I looked at him and I said, Per, I really like you because you have a vision and I know you a bit. But I mean, me, with lawyers, it's like a little bit like Monty Python, accountants and lawyers and what a dreadful doll, and you want all to be a lion tamer, basically. That scene from Monty Python. And I said, I don't know what to do with a law firm because now I want you because I know you could be the perfect match. And And we talked, and then he did this like in the movies. You write on an not on an envelope, but write on like a napkin, and you get the napkin over like you, and I open it, and I looked at it. Wow, it's a lot of zeros here. No, I didn't say that out. But I try not to look too impressed. By the way, just to remember, I'm going to play the game here. This looks good, because there was a pension package, there was the salary, there was the whatever, all the stuff that I never had in my whole life, all the stuff. And I, do you have a pen? Can I get your pen? I said the pen. I took his pen and I wrote back a little bit, and then I switched it back, and he looked at it and said, "Oh, this is okay. Well, I have to take this up with the board because I put some extra stuff in it." Yeah, I added something, to it. Yeah. And then next thing led to another, to meet the board and meet the lawyers, and then I got hired as a market director. Then I was a business development and relation guy, basically. So we had, I think...
So he saw you as someone who would be good.
Building the brand, the relations, because basically lawyers are lawyers. God bless. I have, unfortunately, I've paid a lot of money to lawyers through the years. We all do. And, you can use them and they're good, but they're all, let's put it nicely, they're all, they're consultants with a specific knowledge, and they're good at that, hopefully. How do you separate them from anyone else, or other law firms? And, you just have to build a brand. So we branded the firm to something nicely. And
how does were the two women put you in contact with him?
No. He out of the blue called me and said, so he have seen me on, there was a club in Sweden called Noppes, which was a very fancy little members club. And I happened to be one of the guys. And at that time, I did some small guided tours for them. And told him about Stockholm history, and we drank wine and ate good food, and he liked the way he's seen me on shows and whatnot, and he thought, this guy I want because he's whatever. Yeah. And I stayed with him 5 years, and that happened. That led me into something very interesting, because I learned about real estate market, bank and finance, and whatnot, because this was a big law firm with covering all kinds of law, corporate law mainly. So it's not like they had nothing to do with criminals, whatever, but criminals and law, but basically corporate law. So I learned a lot about financing and real estate, and I worked with these lawyers, and we traveled around to different forums. Again, networking. You travel to fund forum, you learn about all the products that the banks are selling, which basically are very bad.
Right?
Yeah, don't go for the bank's products. That's one tip I can give you. Don't trust the banks.
Were you selling on the app? Were you selling the bank's products?
No. We were there because I sold in the law firm to the bankers, right? Because we were a corporate law firm with bank specialities. So the bankers and the investment companies, whatever, were selling their products. They maybe needed a good lawyer in the Scandinavian market. So I was selling in a law firm, basically. It was just relations. I put them together with some guys that I knew who were big bankers. And I had dinner, and the next thing led to some kind of, agreement to do business together.
Yeah.
That's how I got into the family office thing, because I had no clue about funds. I was no interested in any of that stuff. I didn't go to any financial school.
This kind of gave you kind of an education.
It gave me an education, yeah, exactly.
So what was it? Just kind of being in that environment and talking to people and being curious?
Yeah, I'm just curious. You get to learn. You see agreements. It's not. To be honest, to be in real estate, you don't have to. You don't need to be Einstein.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. Yeah. If you do it right. Don't get me wrong. It's not that simple. You need to understand. Certain basics of what it is. I picked up quite a few things that I could use, and then I learned to know a lot of different kind of investment and families that were there. They were looking at the diverse portfolios and what to do with all the funds that they have and whatnot. And I got into that business and starting to help these families, because it's very much about trust. Yeah. And integrity again, and be able to network, but have a network yourself, I would say like-minded, but I don't like that word at all. But you need to match, and you want to buy a real estate portfolio. It's not one house. We're talking maybe thousands or hundreds of houses or tens. It's big portfolios, and it's a lot of wealth and a lot of fundings that need to. Yeah, you understand. So that's what I did.
You pivoted from the lawyer.
Yeah.
Into family office then?
Yeah, and I quit. I jumped. Yeah, so I quit the law firm after 5 years. It became quite political, and it's same with any companies. I believe this was my first employment, maybe one of my first employment I ever had, if not the only one I've been employed. So basically, there's a tendency. As a power player, I learned to know about these power plays that they have. This whatever lawyers. You mean a powerful? Yeah. Well, a lot of companies tend to be not understanding the competence, and there is of course a power play within companies where you want to reach a certain level and well, it's normal. You want to do career. A lot of young people are lawyers. Let's put it as let's focus on law firm. You're a young guy coming out of school. You have to, you're a junior. You will have to work long hours. I would say they use them terribly. Yeah. This is where they put, the older lawyers. There's a certain hierarchy. If you become a senior partner or junior partner, associate, or whatever you call it, and so forth, and you come up. And there's a system within law firms, not all, but the ones I know at least, where you basically you get to earn more money, but you come up in hierarchy and you get more points, and then and it takes a while. You have to vote yourself. They vote you into that system, and you have to stay for many years. It's also, I guess, to create some kind of loyalty and to trim them into the organization. But there's a lot of competition within, right?
Yeah.
So, and you see a lot of greed. A lot of stuff that I don't like. Yeah. I don't like greed and dishonesty and stuff like that.
And that's I think the big, if there was kind of a theme that's often taught us here, it's like building relationships.
Yeah.
It's the big one.
Yeah, it is the big one. And that you do with storytelling or something else. You make up something, not make up, but you there's so much to, relation is probably the...
reputation, trust,
integrity,
reputation that people trust and believe in. Because you build a reputation over decades, and you can lose it in a day.
It's all about that's a very good one. You're saying you said reputation is very, very, very important. It's trust. So if you end up doing something where somebody loses trust in you, then you can be really in a bad position, of course, and you're out.
Yeah,
and that's not very good.
That's since Hollywood, when you had that
Hollywood again
falling out with the guy, kind of he cut everything off.
Yeah.
Do you think that was like a lesson to be like, okay, if there's gatekeepers, I'm not going to upset them, or did that happen any future times in your career as well?
It's life is a complete lesson, right? So I mean, life is a university.
Yeah.
And it's all, now it sounds strange, but it's all an illusion in a way. If you get into, and we're not going to get in, we don't have time for that probably today, but quantum physics and all that, but that's a different level. But basically, I mean, the part with that famous producer who ended up in jail himself, and he was the biggest man in Hollywood. But he was after my girlfriend at that time. Yeah, and I told him to F off. And that was not the smartest move I've ever done. But as an integrity myself, I didn't really care who he was. I should have cared if I was interested in my Hollywood career, so to speak. But at that time, I had a few glasses to drink, and I felt very offended by his behavior. And he was a complete... he was a terrible guy, and it came out later on that he was a terrible guy in Hollywood as well. So he was well known.
Yeah,
the biggest one actually. and that stopped me from that. Anyway, yeah, what you're saying, trust. You were saying that that through my life, if that was something that stopped me, or
Well, I mean, just as you explained the story now, it was more just actually being like integrity shining through there, basically, by calling it out proud and worrying about
my advice is don't take life too seriously. All right. Enjoy it while you can. Basically, now. I can say that now, of course, 20, 40 or 30 years back, because I've been around so long, so I could say it easily now. It's, of course, not easy to go around and don't take life too serious, but it's all about exploring. And by exploring and being open-hearted and of course be careful and trust your heart very much so. Don't think too much here. To think about that, logical things, but trust this one. This heart or the whatever, it can tell you much more than the brain, and that's tested as well, right? So, and be curious. I've been sometimes too curious. And, you open up one door and you slam it in your face, and you open another one door and, that was sort of abyss. Okay, you climb up and do something else. I mean, it's just a roller coaster. But on the other hand, you get to learn to live life. Life should be about that, because it's a school. I strongly believe we are put here for a certain purpose, certain reason why we're on this planet, this beautiful planet, who really doesn't give a shit. Sorry about that. Can you say that? Yeah. It doesn't give a shit about us. This is something people are always saying, we're going to save the planet. Let's save the planet. The planet doesn't care about us. Yeah. We've been here for a very short time. If you compare to, there was dinosaurs, there was other, it's been there for a long time. And we're going to be here long after we're gone, the human race, most probably as well. That planet doesn't give a shit. We should care about us as a human race. And we're put here for a purpose. And this is our school.